Welcome back to Control, Alt, Delete, and Repeat, the show where we automate smarter, think deeper, and occasionally eat pizza over our laptops while automating smarter and thinking deeper. I'm Paul Malott, the founder of Automations 24, business strategist, and the kind of guy who sets up a CRM just to track his coffee spending. Today, I'm with the kind of coach you wish you had in your 20s, right around the time you decided budgeting was a vibe thing and sushi could always go on the credit card. Dylan Snowden is a financial coach for creatives. We're talking actors, writers, freelancers, directors, the folks who live on passion and irregular paychecks. He's worked with over 250 clients from Saturday Night Live, The Tonight Show, major streaming series, and helping them build systems around money that are honest, simple, and work for the chaos of real life. Dylan, welcome to the show, and thank you for not judging me for owning 4 different financial budgeting apps and still using only none of them.
Glad to be here, Paul. And I'd say that's just part of your journey.
Yeah, it is, and especially when you're in automations and you're trying several different, unique applications almost daily, it's almost overwhelming, right? And some of the myths that my first question is about a myth. But I'll talk about automation real quick. Some of the myths I have in automation are that the latest tool is the greatest tool, and that's not true, right? There are some tried and true things out there that really work, and I'm sure that applies to money too, right? So, what's the biggest myth that you hear from the professionals that you work with about money, right? That keeps showing up, but should be dressed as a falsity.
I think universally, I was a TV writer for years in Los Angeles and worked in New York, and we always think about the next big check is going to solve everything. And that's for writers, actors, directors, creatives, freelancers. You're like, the next big one is going to solve it. So I don't have to touch the thing right now. I don't have to work on the money problems right now. I can rely on my future self to fix it. And that's really hard because our relationship with money doesn't change depending on how much money we have, right? And so I've seen people, myself included, when you get those big checks, it was hard to get there. It was a lot of work. You had to wait all the time. And you do not want to necessarily just say, okay, I'll keep with beans and rice every night. You want to celebrate. You want to go to Disneyland. You want to take your family maybe to Europe. You want to go to Legoland with the grandkids or, nephews or nieces, what have you. Having that big check makes the future self work really hard. And then your future self is, guess what? Pretty similar to your current self. So it's really about managing the money now, regardless of how much is in the paycheck. How much is in the checking account.
Sure, no, that's really interesting. I mean, I can speak from my own personal experience going from this idea that, in corporate world, a steady paycheck equals, total security. And, being on the side of things where I'm recalibrated out of the organization. And it's, no fault of my own. It happens to really strong people every day. But it's a really good reminder that, I heard somebody say once, you're pushing a snowball uphill, right? There's moments when you kind of, speaking about steady or big paychecks, right? The big check. There's a moment when you want to stop and go and take a breather, but that's a big snowball that you've created. Let's keep the momentum going, right? And in entrepreneurship, any freelance work, it's really about prospecting and keeping your avenues open. And for me, in the last year, that's been a big adjustment, right? Just to continually have to grind on yourself and your own motivations, right? And so, that's a good segue actually to the next question here, because you're working with people earning 6 figures and I'm sure they probably, like you said, the relationship with money doesn't change, so they still feel broke, right? I mean, this is also my case in certain situations, right? What's going on there?
Well, I mean, let's talk about, you said at the top of the meeting, you're like, what was your money life when you're 20s? It's rent, pizza money, maybe a few dates, something simple like that. But now we're in our 30s and 40s. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, and there's after school programs. You have all those kids probably should have some kind of health insurance, including yourself. You got car payments. You're not driving maybe a Geo Metro like my dad was with 1 kid, but maybe you're driving a nicer, newer car with 4 kids. So all these additional expenses go out the door for money, and then you're like, wait, so many clients will come to me because they're like, where is the money for me? I'm the one putting in 60 hours a week.
Yeah, right. What happened?
But there's nothing left. It's because we have all these new reoccurring expenses that can be necessary, should be evaluated. But then we also have the Target runs, the Amazon packages coming every day. We want to go on a vacation and we don't want to stay at a hostel late 25. So those things add up if we don't at least evaluate it.
Well, I'm smiling at the last 3 examples because I think they're like, they represent talking points, discussion points between my wife and I frequently, right? On just about all occasions. So when you're in your 20s and I made several bad financial decisions in my 20s. Not incredibly stupid, but like you said, it was pizza and whatever came next, or whatever book I wanted to read or something. How do you start building a financial infrastructure to accommodate for the flexibility you're going to need to try new hobbies, to allow your child to go do lacrosse? The
Yeah.
$125 goes out the window there, right?
Yeah.
How do you start building that infrastructure? What does it look like?
What's so key about what you just said, Paul, was also like your own hobbies, right? Not just your
Yeah.
kids' lacrosse. Because that is a big thing of when I meet with couples. Like half the people I meet with are couples.
Hmm.
And the big question of how do you feel okay spending money on yourself? How do you spend money for the things that build out in your life, like lacrosse is? My kids are in their camp year for the first year for summer. Every year was preschool, preschool, preschool. Now it's like, okay, we've got circus camp, 4 weeks of nature camp, we've got art camp, and all
Yeah.
these other things that we just did not assume were going to happen, but
Juggling.
they
Yeah.
did. Is juggling, exactly. So I think the big thing is like figuring out what are the necessities you have in life. A lot of people don't know. One of the first questions I'll ask people in the first meeting when we first talk, see if this is a good fit, I'll say, do you know how much you spend every month? And
Hmm.
I've done that again. Worked with 250 people, probably spoke to like 6, 7, 800 people ask that question. 95% don't know. And there's no shame or guilt around that, but we don't track it. I know you have 4 apps, don't use it. That
Yeah,
makes
well,
sense.
it's
Most
true.
people
No,
don't use it.
I'm thinking to myself, I'd give you a roundabout answer, right? I mean, I'd be like, well, between this and this,
Yeah, yeah,
because I don't know, and it's probably not okay, right? I mean, it's also specific to things, personal life, right? It's the roundabout answer. Business life, it's like everything's got to be dotted and T'd. And I'm thinking from the entrepreneurial freelance standpoint, that's the grind that you're mentioning, right? It's
yeah,
the keep pursuing. Just because you got that check, it doesn't mean there's not. I don't want to say cleanup activity, but it's like all the other activity that comes with potential irregular income, right? To
yeah.
maintain and keep it moving.
Yeah. It's interesting because you talked about the entrepreneurial business side. Like, you have to dot your T's, cross your I's, right? You have to get all those
Hmm.
things right. But I would pitch to your listeners as well is that that mindset you have for your business, which is so successful, which is running, you know how to run it, transfer that skill set to managing your family money.
Rock
It
and roll.
is, you have to treat it like a business. If you can, rip out the emotional side of the spending, of the thinking, and say, like, listen, if I was looking at someone else's books, what would I say to them? Right?
Hmm.
And you can have frustration with your past spending. I do that all the time. Absolutely. We just spent 3 days visiting friends near San Jose, and I was like, let's get more dinner. Let's have this. Let's do this. And I could beat myself up about it. But what I instead tell myself, and I tell listeners, ask yourself, I'm probably going to go to San Jose again. I'm going to see those friends again. What do I want to do differently next time?
Hmm.
All right. Can we make burritos at home? Can we, instead of taking the big train ride through the forest, which was fun, can we just go to State Park for $10? 5-year-old really need that train? Does a 5-year-old
Right.
really going to have fun at the creek of the park? So you're going to continue making mistakes until your deathbed. What you want to do better at is just saying, what do we do next time? So much of our life is predictable. We can actually make changes the next time any of those things happen because they're going to happen again.
Well, I love it. I mean, I hate to. I've been listening to the Game of Thrones book on my long ass trip, and I thought of as you're talking, shame. Like I'm shaming myself
I
almost for
remember
the
that, yeah.
spend. Like so. How do I deal with? You gave me some practical pointers there, but really, in your 5-year-old example was really good because I remember with my son, it's like I need to get him to a Detroit Lions football game at 2 years old, and I didn't need to at all. And then, your 3-year-old, you wanted to feel like the 10-year-old, my son, you want him to have the same thing. And then you have a rational side of your brain, and the rational side tends to shame me, mine does. So more tips, come on, give them to
How do
me,
you
go.
negotiate that? Right, yeah. I remember, I think my oldest is 5, and their second Christmas, or maybe second birthday, I wanted to get one thing at Target. We got a few small things. So I was like, I'll get a little bike for him. And then I'm walking down the aisles, and I'm like, they'd love this bubble thing. Oh my gosh, they have like slime, like when I was a kid. So it's so
Yeah,
easy just to start adding stuff. What
yeah.
I would say about the shame is when it comes back to like, okay, second birthday was like that. Third birthday was not like that. So it is evaluating, saying, what do I want to do better next time?
Yep.
The other part of it is that I want to acknowledge something. I'm a capitalist. We live in a capitalist society, but our society teaches us to spend. We see
Sure.
5,000 ads a day. Your parents probably saw 500 ads a day. We are always seeing ways to spend. I would do meetings with new clients in LA, and I would meet a coffee shop in Hillhurst, Los Feliz area, and I'd say, like, you could spend $10,000 at 10 different shops within 100 feet.
Sure.
There's one Chase Bank you could save money. We don't talk about saving. If we have a savings machine running, we talk about how to get rid of shame. If we know our other goals, our other
Sure.
needs are being met, you can go get lacrosse. You can go to season tickets for the Lions. You can do all of those things. But the question that a lot of times shame comes from is that we think, oh, other things maybe need to be taken care of as well. But then it's ambiguous. Like, well, what are those things? And so that's a big thing of like outlining, what the heck are your goals? What do you all want to do as a family? What do you want to accomplish? And then start saying,
100%. So like to me, I don't know. I hate to sound so like caveman, right? But it's spend less, you manage the bank account. When it grows, it's good. When it goes down, it's bad, right? Or when it stays the same, you're not as impressed. So spend less doesn't equate to. It's still kind of a 20-year-old strategy, right? It's not the only way to fix things. I mean, what I think you're talking about is spending better, right?
More intentional. I would say
More intentional.
intentionality is the word that I use with, I was going to say students with clients, and I've worked with students sometimes. And I think that there's so much that's like we're trying to stop the bleeding, especially if you're in your
Yeah.
30s and 40s and you have kids, or maybe you're supporting a family member, is that like you're just trying to make it through the day, right?
Yeah.
And so that is not unusual to have and happen with spending. But at the same time, let's talk about some automation. If your automation is savings, then you
Hallelujah.
know that you can spend that money. So what I use is, I'm going to plug something. I don't get any affiliate links from this. I love Ally Banks. If you
Okay.
Google Ally Bank, they have high yield savings accounts. They're FDIC insured, meaning your money is protected. And what they do is what more banks do. But brick and mortar, Chase, Bank of America, they don't do this. They do what's called saving buckets, meaning that you say exactly what the savings goal is. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a freelancer, if you're not getting a monthly paycheck, weekly paycheck, then what you need is an emergency fund to be able to
Yep.
give you a runway so that you
Yep.
last. So you have an emergency fund, but you also have a fund so that when you want to spend a weekend in Ohio, you want to go travel and do some cabin time, you know you have money. Instead of saying, oh, it'll work out, look at the account. And you do those automatically. If you get paid every week, every month, every twice a month, great. Automatically move the money over. If you're getting a big check, a residual, if you get a show that you're going to be on, great. Guess what? You preset those percentages and saying every check I get, 20% goes to this, 30% goes to taxes. Yes,
Yep.
taxes. And then 10% can go to fun. Then you know where you're at. That's what you would do for your business. It's no different for family
That's exactly
life.
what I was going to say. I mean, it's business financials 101 is what you just gave me there, right? But it's funny to think that you have to treat your personal life as strict, right? In a way. And, that for some people, including myself, that's really transformational, right? Do you have some examples of carrying people like yours truly through this kind of transformation? I mean, where I started is using one of the apps, right? And
Yeah.
one of my 4 financial apps and deleting the other one. That's
I
a
would.
good start, no?
I think that's a good start, and I'll pitch another one that I really like. I like Monarch Money. They were the
Okay.
folks who started Mint Money, and that got sold, and they started Monarch, and I think it's really good. It's very clean. So let's talk about the apps. Some of those apps, regardless of who makes it, it's going to tell you at some point when you build a budget, right? It's going to say, hey, you overspent on restaurants. You overspent on
Shame.
gifts. You overspent that. Right.
Yeah.
Shame, ringing that bell. Nobody wants to see that. So that's what happens. People download it, then they get that feedback, and they don't like it. So
Yeah.
there's a few percentage of people out there who say, like, I'm fine with that. I like that feedback. It is helpful to me. But I would say instead, this could be for you, Paul, and for anybody, it's like, do a spending audit. Look at the last few months of spending, which those tools will let you do. And they'll say, what do you spend on groceries, restaurants, fast food, travel? Those are usually the spicier categories I see. Do you value those as much as you're spending? Usually people don't. They'll be like, they come to me because they want to spend less in those areas. They want to save.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's what I predict. Instead of giving yourself a budget, because some people will say, I can go back to 20-year-old days. I can go to beans and rice. I can just go cups of noodles. And I'm like, you're not doing that. I've had people who are like, they go to Broadway shows every few weeks with their girlfriend. You're not going to eat beans and rice before you go see Hamilton. That's
Sure.
not going to happen. But instead, what I'd ask you and the listeners to do is, I want you to get good at predicting, forecasting instead of budgeting. And so for those groceries, restaurants, fast foods, travel, just predict. If I do this on the 1st of the month, what do you think I will spend on the 30th or the 31st? And just put that prediction in there. You'll look at it in a month. I'd suggest actually looking at it more often if you can, but then get better at predicting. Just say like, oh, I was over 100. Oh, my uncle was in town. I took him out to a few restaurants. What do I want to do better? So then you predict again, and you predict again, and you predict again. So all those expenses that happen in our life can feel like they come out of nowhere, but really those keep happening over and over again. So that is my prediction tip. Instead of saying like I have a cut, instead predict.
Okay. No, no, no. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because I mean it's forecasting 101, right? You're giving me
Yeah.
this should be a business school here. But the reality is, right, when you're sitting down and you're budgeting, you know, you're predicting the future in a sense. You're trying to accommodate for these additional expenses, and I think that honestly. For me, it's not walking through a Publix or Walmart park checkout counter and seeing the Snickers candy bar. It's more like I've got these like ideas that I'm going to go and start this. I'm going to become a good fisherman in the next 5 years. So I'm going to invest in, good equipment
Yeah.
and then all the money that comes with that hobby, right?
Yeah.
And you try to develop that with the kid. And I feel like it's well, sometimes you can't predict life events, right? So how are we dealing with that in terms of how do we do that? We're budgeting for it. We're saying this is my $10 slush fund. Maybe I have to use it as an emergency fund too.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm glad you acknowledge what the event experience you want. It's fishing, is that you are
Sure,
focusing on
yeah,
too. I
yeah.
like that. I like
There
that.
we go.
I would say, how do you do that in a way that you still feel good about it? Because like a lot of times it'll be travel too. And I think about
Yeah,
with clients, I'll say, I want you to feel good before the travel, during the travel, and afterwards. I had a client
yeah,
who came to me and they said last year they went to Australia from LA. And right when they got on that 20-hour flight, they started feeling terrible. They
sure.
felt terrible because they knew they did not know how to do this financially, right? So you asked me a lot of good questions there. I'm going to break it apart a little bit for you.
Yeah,
How do
well,
you do
please.
those events with your kiddos, and how do you do them in a way that feels great for you as well? Part of that is, yeah, trying to say, like, well, how much do I really have? And the way we know how much we have, and this is a tip for the people who are listening and saying, Dylan, I'm not going to download the app. I'm not going to do that on my own. Even if I forecast, I'm not going to do that. And that's fine. I think that's going to be tough for a lot of folks. So this
Sure.
is the answer for that, plus how to go fishing. What we need to do is, usually Americans, we have a checking account and a savings account, right? If you're talking about the personal side. And that's probably for the business side too. You should have your own business account. You should have your own checking account.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, you have your own savings account and your business checking account. Just to let you know, your taxes should be in a savings account so you know that's Uncle Sam's money regardless.
Sure.
So for your personal, I would say tweak it. And this can be used for your business as well. You have fixed costs. You have your mortgage, you have your rent, you have your car insurance, you have your cell phone, you have maybe health insurance, all those fixed things that have to be paid,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those go in what's called a checking account for your fixed expenses. So you know what that number, that is forecasted. That is, you're going to be living in that house for another month at least. You're going to be
Yep.
driving that car. Your kid is going to need health insurance for another month. You might have child type payments, either if it's school or after school
Sure.
or lacrosse. You know what those bills are. So you look at that number total. Let's say it's a clean number. Let's say $7,000. So the goal is at the beginning of every month, you need to have $7,000 in that checking account that is for
Mm-hmm.
fixed cost. That is the only goal. Then what's great about all of those expenses that could be from 4 to 40, you don't have to think about them. No thought has to be given. So, but then let's say you do want to go maybe for a fishing weekend, right? You want to buy a pass, do some fun, something, get some big halibut bass.
Sure.
Let's say you go out there, you have your other account. This is your flexible checking account. This account is how much you have left for fun. This is how much you have for groceries. This is what you may have for vet expenses. These are the things that come up, and this is the dollar amount you have. So you have your flex fixed, which is that $7,000 for you need to, this money will be gone by the end of the month for all those recurring expenses. And then you have your flexible, which is your choice, your discretion. You can spend it. Now what happens is that money only just goes down. Money doesn't go into
Right.
that account except for the first. So if you're going, okay, let's go fishing this weekend. I've got $1,400 left and it's the 20th. You have to be intentional. You have to ask yourself, can I do this?
Yeah,
Now,
don't pick up the other card for the other expenses because then you're not going to pay your bills, right? I mean,
exactly.
but it's a very structured way to look at well, look at your finances, right? Sitting here thinking about bringing this, to my wife. Okay, well, what's some advice you'd have for me, right? I mean, I'm the vibe guy, right? And she's the money boss, and which is fine, right? It's
Yeah.
worked out so far. But I really like the idea. I really do. And I think that not only does it segregate the priority, right, based on priority, but it allows you to basically intentionally pick up one card or the other. That's like a decision point where, if I keep everything in the same basket, I kind of don't intentionally pay that much attention to it,
Yeah, intentionally non-intentional. Oh, I'm gonna steal that, Paul. I
Yeah,
love
well,
that
yeah, well, I
because
love
you're
it,
right.
right?
So how do you? This one. Let me add one thing, and I'll add this question. The answer that question about bringing it to a partner, because a lot of people will be the money boss, and another person will be the vibe. That's very natural. Very rarely do I see people as both money bosses because we grow up in different households,
Sure,
learning about money different ways, and we all have different responsibilities in the household when we come together. One thing I'll note: this system of like having a fixed and flexible. I don't mention credit cards, right? And
sure.
this is if you're online, you're hearing lots about reward points, free
Yeah.
bags, free flight, 4,000 points, 20,000 points. If you sign up now, you'll get to Cabo and you'll get the tent and the resort. Those things are fine, but I, with clients, will say, on average, the average American saves about $30 to $40 on points. When I work with
Wow.
clients, I want that small ball. I work and save people 500 to 4,000 a month, right? We make big changes so that you are structured for the long term.
Well,
Points
I'm
are
chuckling at
fun.
how $40 to $50 is weak.
30 to 40. I would love, I mean, 50 is
From
an
30 to 40 is
exaggeration.
weak.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's really, I mean, it's savings nonetheless, but it's really not worth, the 10, 20 minutes it takes for me to go through
Thinking about it.
whatever customer service or thinking about it exactly for
Yeah.
whatever problem. And that's really interesting too. For business, credit can be an important thing to leverage,
Yeah.
but it's just another expense to manage, right? It's another bucket of mortgage payment. The way that I kind of look at it, right? It's in the same exact bucket as that, and it's rarely a necessity, right? You should be working on cash. But again, you talk about the households and where you come from. I came from I grew up on food stamps, right? And that's a different type of respect for money, but that's why I vibe about it because it's like as long as I have it, I'm fine.
Yes.
But
It's a script. Yeah.
you're talking of intentional management of it, intentional use of it is well for me here.
Yeah. I think if you use a card that is a debit card, you know, okay, I have to make a choice now. This isn't future Paul figuring it out.
Mm,
I need to know I can do this. Because if we have a credit card, it's a loan. You're taking out a loan for
yeah,
all those actions. Paul in 45 days has to figure that out. And I'd
yeah.
rather you make that choice today. Now, talking to your partner, like, how do you work on this? I would say easiest. I'm a big fan of easy, simple systems because those are the ones we do. We don't want hard. Hard is like complex and takes different levers and time and effort. As simple as possible is what we want to do with money because money is hard on its own.
Any
Simplest thing
process,
is,
honestly,
oh yeah,
any
absolutely.
process.
First thing, I would say list out those reoccurring expenses. You go to your credit card or your checking account and say like, what are all of our reoccurring expenses that we spend money on so you know what that number is and be honest with that number. Then say like, okay, what is our incomes? If we have dual incomes, triple incomes, single incomes, what do we think we're taking in this month? What do we have left for expenses? What do we have left for fun? What do we have left for groceries? What do we have left for other things? Because you know you have to have those expenses set aside for those fixed costs. And we haven't really talked about it, but there's also we got to save for retirement. We got to save for those emergencies. We got to save for
Future
kid.
Paul.
Yeah. So those are part of it as well. But definitely first step, talk about those, having those fixed expenses set aside. And I'd say you could set up 2 checking accounts at B of A, Chase, wherever you're at pretty easily. And then take that for a spin for a few months and just tweak it. But try it for 90 days.
Do you recommend the couples, share an account?
It depends on the person. I know that kind of sounds like a cop out, but I've leaned towards yes because you should be making group decisions. When you make a group
Sure.
decision, it's a little bit more, you have more buy-in and a little bit more of a, you talked about having a money bias. I use the same language that someone's a money bias, but at the same time, you both are working on it together.
Yeah.
You don't need to be successful to do that, but I do, at the least, I would say have a joint account for those joint expenses. Like maybe it's the rent, maybe mortgage, but it's also groceries. Maybe it's all
Yeah,
of those types of
100%.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, at least I mean it saves from future conversations. I mean future arguments, right? If it's all out there, and I agree with transparency
Yeah.
and having the conversation, right? So we're nearing the end of the time. I'll ask you a serious question, okay? If if a squirrel, I know it's the last question's always about squirrels. So if a squirrel landed a major royalty check, 6 figures from a show, Nuts and Fame or something, and what's the first dumb thing that the squirrel's going to blow money on? Is it going to be a luxury treehouse in Aspen, a diamond acorn chain? And what financial advice would you give them after they realize their empire has crashed?
My folks are surrounded by squirrels at their house. So this is something I've been seeing a lot as I visit home. And I've thought about where they should go other than our front yard. I think the first thing they want to do is upgrade the squirrel attire and upgrade their
Yeah, flashy. I
squirrel
agree.
treehouse. Like they want a squirrel credenza. They want a squirrel rug in each room. They want better squirrel curtains. They don't want
They
IKEA
seem
squirrel.
they seem needy to me, you know. They
It's
really
it's
do.
they're always something with the squirrels. So I would say be be mindful that this check and ask the squirrel, ask how what am I going to make my next check? We waited a
Yeah.
long time likely for this nice royalty check. We waited a long time to get in this writer's room or to get staffed or picked for a show. So I would say give yourself an honest answer of like, okay, this might take a while. I don't want to feel stressed for the next 6 months or year. But buy one thing for your home maybe.
Give them a chance to get one the rug that we talked
Yeah,
about.
one
No,
squirrel rug.
Dylan, this has been an awesome call and really incredible. I mean, you've taken a lot of things that can be confusing and emotional for a lot of people and turn it into something that it feels doable, right? Manageable, and human, you know, and we're all able to do it, right? So where can our listeners find you?
Head to my website, dylanteachesfinance.com. There's more information about what I do, how I work with clients, a lot of different ways. And also on my Instagram, I'm always posting new tips if you like this, if this was helpful. Just Dylan Teaches Finance.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Dylan. This is Control, Alt, Delete, and Repeat, and we'll see you on the next loop. Thank you.
Thank you.